Hello there and welcome. This is Mikhail or Michael speaking. And as always, before the video starts, I want to use this opportunity to express my eternal gratitude towards those who decided to support me financially, be it through Patreon, PayPal, or Super Thanks. I really appreciate your generosity, so thank you friends and have a blessed day. Now today's video I will start with Velika Novosilka sector, where Russian forces were reported attacking from the settlement of Priutne in the general direction of Ukrainian-controlled village of Novomykhailivka and Rivnopol, in attempt to increase their zone of control and the buffer zone in between Ukrainian forces and the village of Priutne. As a result of offensive storming operations, Russians were able to advance here in this area and successfully capture this portion of the front line. Here on this video you can see artillery preparations right before the Russians had started to storm the positions and strongholds located along this forest line. Report suggests that after such heavy bombardments, most of the Ukrainian troops were forced to retreat and Russians took those positions seemingly without any fight. Again, this is probably a result of positional style of warfare and might not be a precursor of any further operations in this area. While we're here, let's quickly visit Rabotino village, where yesterday Russian forces were able to advance ever slightly in the direction of this said village, and as a result of successful offensive actions captured about this much territories from the Ukrainian side. This puts Russian forces about 1500 meters from the village itself and will allow them to attack in the direction of this village directly. With more attacks coming from the south as well, we might expect the beginning of storming of this village in the near future. It seems that the village of Rabotino became the initial goal of the Russian army groupings in this area. From Zaporozhye, let's move all the way to the settlement of Novomykhailivka and discuss the situation here as well. Here Russians were reported attacking in the direction of this pretty big town from the east as well as from the south. However, it seems those attacks were fruitless and Ukrainians were successful at repelling them. On the other hand, Russians attacked to the northeast of Novomykhailivka, and as a result of that were able to capture a very important stronghold called Zverinets. This is it right here. Here on this picture you can see exactly how much territories Russians were able to capture within the last 24 hours. With the fall of this very important stronghold, this will greatly decrease their defensive capabilities in this area. With this recent gain, you can also see Russians gaining the ability of attacking towards Novomykhailivka from the northeast, perhaps with combined attacks coming from the north, northeast, east, and south as well. Russians will be able to re-enter Novomykhailivka, this time from multiple sides, and its storming would be much successful than the one that took place about a month ago. If you don't remember, I will remind that Russians initially entered the town, but were driven back by constant Ukrainian counterattacks. On the most interesting note, this recent territorial Russian gain was acknowledged by pro-Ukrainian sources, and here was the situation of yesterday, and here is the situation of today, with these territories coming under Russian control. From Novomykhailivka, let's move all the way to the settlement of Avdiivka, but before we discuss the situation there, let's discuss the situation within Pervomaisky village, where here Russians were also able to advance ever slightly in the direction of the center of this village, mostly along the E50 highway. And here on this picture you can see how much territories that was. Ukrainian sources also acknowledged this recent Russian territorial gain. Here was the situation of yesterday and here is the situation of today, with those territories coming under Russian control. It seems that Russians are pretty rapidly advancing in the direction of the center of the village, and perhaps will launch more attacks from this direction as well, in attempt to close off this sector of the town, as well as from the settlement of Vadiane to paralyze Ukrainian forces located in this area. The more territories Russians acquire around Pervomaisky, the less likely Ukrainians will stay here and defend. Then let's quickly discuss situation in Avdiivka, and although Syriac maps had not made any changes, it seems that Russians were launching several attacks from the village of Apitne in the direction of Avdiivka itself, and some territorial changes were acknowledged by pro-Ukrainian sources. So here was the situation of yesterday, and here is the situation of today, with those said territories being recaptured by the Russians. With this latest achievement, Russians yet again pushed Ukrainians away from Apitne, saving it from direct attacks and any possibilities of it being captured. Heavy fighting continued here in this area as Ukrainians desperately counterattack in attempt to push Russians away from this recently acquired bridgehead. Those Ukrainian attacks are met with counterattacks of Russians, and as a result of those actions, both sides were unable to advance. Fighting also happened all around the city, as Russian forces advanced from the village of Kamyanka, as well as from the village of Vesele, fighted within Stepove village, advanced in the direction of Berdichi, in the direction of Novomykhailivka, and as well as Novomykhailivka. Despite heavy fighting and constant attacks, no territorial changes are reported. In the background of those battles, both sides are engaged in artillery and counter-artillery duels. Russian aviation here never sleeps, and here on this video you can see Russians bombarding Avdiivka with aviation bombs. From here let's move all the way to the Kupyansk front and discuss the situation around Tabaivka village, where in the last few days the situation quickly deteriorated for the Ukrainian side. If you remember, at first Russians made some significant gains and captured Krokhmalne, which then allowed them to advance across the highway and capture Tabaivka. And after that, Russians launched several attacks in the direction of Peshchane and Berestove as well. When it comes to the pro-Ukrainian sources, at first they completely disregarded the idea of Russians capturing this small village, but then acknowledged it, as you can see here on your screens. Then they reported of Ukrainians successfully counterattacking and retaking the village back. However, later on, those news were refuted. Here near Tabaivka, Russians were not only able to secure control of the village, but also successfully storm the heights located in front of it and capturing several Ukrainian positions. Report suggests that currently Ukrainians and Russians are engaged in heavy fighting, in which Russians are attempting to advance further on and use this success at its full potential, while Ukrainians are counterattacking in attempt to retake initiative and damage Russian cohesion. The result of such battles is still unclear. While the fighting here continues, Russians also advanced in the direction of Berestove, which is this village right here, and as a result of successful storming operations, captured about this much territories from the Ukrainian side. As the recent Russian territorial gains in this area suggests, to this day Ukrainians are unable to stabilize the situation, with the entire front slowly crumbling after each Russian attack. Let's also discuss the situation around Synkivka. Yesterday Russian forces were able to advance in the forest area in between Liman Pershi and Synkivka, and today Ukrainian sources acknowledge this as well. Here is the situation of yesterday, and here is the situation of today, with those territories coming in under Russian control. As you can see, those Russian attacks are in obvious attempt to re-enter Synkivka and capture it altogether, but this time attacking under the cover of the forest, unlike previous attacks, in which Russians were forced to advance along the open fields, thus becoming easy targets for Ukrainian artillery and drone operators. There are no reports of Russians storming Synkivka as of yet, but I'm sure as Russians will slowly acquire more control over this forest, we will soon hear news of that. With this I end today's video. Hopefully it was to your liking and was informative enough. If it was, please consider supporting this video by any means you consider necessary. As always, humanity calls me to condemn all violence against human beings. Have a good day, and always remember, Russia will be free and great.